Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's D-Ribz again on the Back to Port podcast. Thank you to our live guests who have already joined in. I can see quite a few of you there. I'm not going to name any names because you don't deserve it. This will be released as a podcast, as I may have just advised everyone before we started. All of the best platforms get it. Spotify, Anchor, Apple Music, all of that. But today, we get to examine the mind of one of the most exceptional voiceover artists in the game. With almost 600,000 views on YouTube. Almost, very close. Over 4,000 subscribers as well. Regular content creator and someone I personally respect. Here we have the one, the only, MetaJerk!
Greetings, everyone!
I really wanted to do a big intro. One for you, but it didn't work.
Yeah, should have left the echo on for that.
Certainly should have done. Also, I had a fog on and I completely forgot about it. But still, sorry for the intro.
Do it post.
I don't know what post means, but still, I figured that you would respect a big welcoming like that just because of who you are, what you do. How are you anyway? Are you good?
I am good. I was going to try and get incredibly hungover today to ruin this, but I did not successfully do that.
I'm 1 day late on that, so I'm exactly the same. I'm very sorry to everyone who's tuned in to listen. But still, so I have been given a lot of information by the community, by your fan base, and I've got a load of questions myself because there's a lot of answers that I haven't attained off you. We haven't played together too much. I know that we've played together a few times, and I've seen you on the other team a bit too much. You need to kind of stop doing that, please. But both myself and the community have these questions. Some of them are old, some of them brand new. Are you prepared for this grilling?
I mean, as much as I'll ever be. The lie detector is all tight over here, so I will send those results along with this recording.
Fantastic. That is good to know. So, first and foremost, how would you best describe the content that you provide?
I don't think it's particularly educational. I tend to tell people not to play like me. I try to do it mostly as a creative outlet for myself, but fortunately people find some enjoyment in that as well. So, yeah, first and foremost, I think it's just for me because I know I'll find it funny. And if anybody else does, well, then that's just an added benefit.
Okay, so comedic benefits. That's what you're going for. That's who you like to be. Is that right?
I think that's fair to say. Primarily entertainment. I can't remember the show that it was back here, but maybe it was Reading Rainbow when they were like, and if you're not careful, you might just learn something too. So, yeah, there's a little bit of information in there, but I find that most people don't like to be beaten over the head with, you should do this, you should do that. It's like, no, I just want it to be fun, and like, maybe there's a little bit of info too.
I'm quite fearful that Rainbow are going to be listening for copyright purposes.
They won't care. It's PBS. It's public broadcasting over here, so it's free.
Talking about your delivery, your voiceovers, even these are something that I've seen a lot throughout your YouTube career, at least.
It's changed a lot, hasn't it?
I'm gonna get to that, but yeah. I mean, do you just your voiceovers are a big part of it, obviously. So do you just smash them out, or do you script them in advance, or do you do a bit of both, or what's your process?
I would say originally, up until probably 6 or 7 months ago, it was all scripted out first. I would spend an hour or two writing it out, but about 6 or 7 months ago I turned off all channel memberships because it was starting to feel like a job and I wasn't having fun anymore, and the pace of when I put out videos dropped significantly, but that was at that point it's still about 75% scripted, and then maybe about 20% is off the cuff, 25% is off the cuff. But yeah, still majority is scripted. You know, I like to write it out. I find that otherwise you're just you easily run out of things to say.
I can appreciate that. I mean, I don't do it myself. I do not have the time to do it. On the other side of this, how do you find the time to do it? How do you set out time in a day? I'm sure you've got a busy life in the States, I'm assuming.
I live in sunny Los Angeles. Well, you know, COVID did a lot of interesting things, and one of the unseen benefits that came from that was I get to work from home now, and the work that I do a lot of creative consultant work. So that means that I have a lot of free time during the day because when I work, it's, you know, from home, and, you know, I might work for 2 hours and then be like, oh, I need a break. And, you know, I can work easily until midnight. You know, I don't really have any set hours, so that actually allows me, you know, to break out one of these whenever I feel like it. If I have something, you know, if I have game recorded or whatever, it's pretty easy for me to put some time aside to actually just be able to do that whenever I want. And that was one of the unforeseen benefits of a pandemic. You know, I came out better for it.
Creativity is an interesting sort of topic. I guess it kind of leans into your work as well. Obviously, if you are a creative consultant, then your creativity is going to reflect on other things that you do, which in this case is your content. And from that, you have a very distinctive accent. You have a specific style during those videos, and I'm assuming your persona comes from your general life, or is that created separately?
Yeah, to a certain degree. It's, you know, the whole big show, if I remember correctly, I remember that from my youth as that's what David Letterman would refer to the Late Show. He'd be like, tonight on the big show. And I remember that always just kind of stuck with me. And so it used to be kind of a running joke when, you know, if I would meet up with friends, you know, whether it's at a bar or whatever, when they would come in, it would be like, tonight on the big show, you know, friend of the show. And I would always just turn into this character sitting in the corner and be like, oh, I understand you brought a clip. Do you want to set this up for it? And so during the pandemic, when I had this, I was like, I need something creative to do. I was like, well, I'm just going to do this and we'll see what happens. And yeah, that's kind of how that all turned into what it is.
See, that does make sense. I've seen the sort of interviewer style delivered in a variety of different videos, also, you know, covering different topics, and it's a really specific way of deliverance, you know. One of the things that I've seen, which I didn't really expect, to be honest, is your YouTube bio. I don't even recall what it says. Would you like me to read it to you?
Sure. Is it love, exciting, and new?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's from the theme. That's from those are the lyrics to the theme song.
That's not Love Boat.
Of the Love Boat, yes.
Oh, God.
So, yes, I am a poet in the sense that I can recognize good poetry, but no, I just think that's a hilarious line to put in connection with this game about boats on the water. I was like, wow, what a perfect marriage. That's hilarious.
I was actually reading it like a haiku. that's how I saw it.
I will say that I wrote some haikus for Tactic Angel when he did his about this game.
Oh, yeah.
But he didn't share all of them, unfortunately, but he did share a few. And he didn't specify which ones people wrote, but I think people can tell if they watch that which ones I wrote.
So you are a poet. There you go. We got the answers that we definitely need whilst we're interviewing you about a game that's completely separate. Going back to said game, what can you tell me about Concept 24/7?
Oh, well, that was so Concept. That was an alternate handle that I had. I don't recall where that was. Where was that? Was that on? It could have been on Reddit.
Yeah. Well, your very first video, you are Concept 24/7. Very first.
I honestly I can't but not for Warships, right? Was it something else?
No, it was for Warships. You were there
Okay. Okay. I remember. So
your ex-Earth friends.
that was I was using a different handle briefly back then, and I used to play Battlefield with this guy, and MetaJerk was always my Battlefield name. And so once it came around where you could change your PlayStation name for free, I just changed it back. That's all that was. So, but Concept 24/7, that was a handle I briefly used for PlayStation. I don't recall why.
Interesting. Well, this is completely segueing into your name that everyone knows you by, MetaJerk. And this is a question from our fellow captain, Papa Nicholas, who is the leader of all of us, apparently. He was wondering, why MetaJerk? And are you a self-referencing foolish person, or is it a play on words?
This is a fun and exciting story for no one, but
I was hoping.
So this all starts back in 1996, I want to say, and when I was first on Internet Relay Chat, my handle there was Cool Jerk, which was taken from a Big Star song called Kangaroo. Big Star being a band from Tennessee that wanted to sound like they were British, which was hilarious because all the British bands wanted to sound like they were Southern rock. But when I was in this channel, MP3 UK, there was another user who had cool in their name, and I was like, well, we can't have two of those. So yeah, in 1997, I switched my name to MetaJerk because it was more of a reference to metadata and how nerdy that is. And because I was like, oh, this is a jerk of jerks. Oh, that's hilarious. I was doing a lot of drugs back then, but
clearly,
yeah. Well, I was also in college, and it was like, oh, this is self-referential. This is so cool. I'm ahead of the game, and that's really where it came from. Though I would say that how it translates to World of Warships, I think it's a name that works because I like weird boats. Like I don't particularly enjoy playing the on-meta ships, that is not interesting to me. I prefer the boats that people are like, this is bad.
You see, that was actually a question for you. It was not posed by myself. It was D Nuoso. It was, would you consider, when you consider your taste in weird boats, do you consider it weird, or do you consider it as exciting to play weaker ships? I think he was trying to get it.
To me, look, I've played many matches in this game. I think I'm somewhere around 28,000 now. And I recall around 10 or 12,000, that I was still kind of a sweat lord at the time. I was like, oh my god, I need to win every match. But I just had completely lost interest. And I remember it was whenever they added in sorting by the last time you played a ship. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to use this now. And I was like, oh, let me try all these ships. And I began to revisit ships that I remember when I was first grinding them out. I was like, this ship is garbage. And I've talked about this in my videos. It turns out it's not the ship. It was me. I was a bad player, and I just didn't even know it. And so now going back, armed with a wealth of experience and knowledge, and going back and playing those ships, it's kind of like, oh, wait, this is way more exciting, and it keeps the game fun for me to try and figure out all of these ships. And frankly, I recall when we were doing the 1v1s and I was letting my streamer, or I was having my audience when I was streaming, choose the ships they wanted to see me play. And of course they want you to play the bad ones. And I remember just going out in a 1v1 with the Gascon and it just being hilarious.
I love that. I love everything about that. I'm very much in the same methodology because I absolutely hate just playing the best things all the time. No one has a chance against you, and it really doesn't make any sense to me. Why don't you challenge yourself? Why don't you excite yourself? Why don't you, feel like you're playing the game rather than a point-and-click adventure, you know?
I think one of the things that I always like to point out to people is, there's 28,000 matches played, but I don't even have 1,000 matches in a single ship. So it's like the ship I've played the most is the Vladivostok with like 900 matches. But after that, it's down to, I think Kleber has like 500 matches. But underneath that, it's like pretty even Steven, not playing one ship too much. And like, I'm happy to say I have 0 XP in the Weimar. Like some ships I just don't even need to play. I'm like, that's a hard pass. I know that's like, I recall somebody gave me the code for the Firepower Deluxe Edition, and I already had everything but the Kamikaze, and I was like, I will never play that ship anyway, so I gave it away.
That's fair. That's really respectable as well. I mean, the whole thing about diversity, that's a good topic to sit on, I think. I enjoy every part of that. I enjoy, playing the most annoying, but, off meta. There you go. That's why you're called meta. You thought about this in 1997, and you're meta now. Interesting. So I wanted to talk about... Well, actually, I wanted to ask you one question first of all, and I think you've already answered it, but I have to ask this to every single person that comes on here that speaks to me, because it's kind of a trademark. Why Legends? Why did you pick this game as the one that you wanted to do? Why did you follow through with it? Why did you become a community contributor of it? Is it,
I'll try to remember all of that. Well, I had never played a wargaming game before. I remember when this came out, it was around the time that I was playing Apex Legends, and this father and son duo that I played Battlefield with, they were like, oh, download this game and check it out, and I was like, okay. So I recall I downloaded it, and I did not like it. It was so slow paced that I was like, you guys can do this, that's fine. And I don't remember how many, probably did a few hundred battles in it and put it away. And then it was the Tirpitz campaign is when I came back and played, and that was like right before COVID. And so I remember, it's funny, I always joke, if people go back on like Reddit, I'm pretty active on Reddit, so if people go back and look at one of my first posts there, it was me complaining about getting a Kraken to get the Tirpitz, which now in hindsight I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. But but what ended up happening was that during that campaign, I recall this very clearly, realizing that I was bad and being like, oh, okay, I want to figure this out. I want to get good. And that was a process that took, many thousands of battles for me. And in that process, developed a greater appreciation of this game. Suddenly, all these things that I didn't even know where the Citadel was on a ship. I was like, am I supposed to shoot somebody up in the crow's nest or whatever this is called? And in that process of learning it, you start to understand the mechanics and how everything works. And that's when I started to get a greater appreciation of the game and the complexities and the nuances, and it just became that slow pace actually became quite enjoyable during a pandemic. So that's how it happened. And then to actually become a content creator, I kind of covered earlier, where I was for a long time I just posted videos, because I was like, you know what, nobody wants to hear anybody talk over a video anymore, because there was already people doing that. Boy, was I wrong. like nobody wanted to watch a gameplay with no commentary. And so I remember I was drinking wine one night with my neighbor, and I was like, I'm thinking about getting a microphone. And he was like, good luck. And it really blew up at that moment. And then we kind of refined what it was that I was going to be doing. And it kind of took off. And I recall Tikana kind of reaching out to me about being a CC. And I was like, sure, why not? I'm here for the Bayard. When is that coming? And look, it only took 3 years, and now we're getting it.
See, that's a USP. You are friendly. You're, loud. If I'm not saying that in a bad way. You are voicing everything that everyone needs to hear, especially in your Kraken videos. And the good thing about them that I've found, and that I would take on board from every video that you do, is your discussion of movement and how you address things, how you get involved in certain situations, what you need to do to get out of certain situations, or what you should be doing, where you're aiming, that kind of thing. So I personally enjoyed that aspect of it. Is your intention to do more of that kind of content? I know you've already done maybe about 300 videos on that already, but I'm imagining you will. For example, your Kraken videos, what are you on, 427-ish now?
Yeah,
maybe?
Somewhere around there. That was actually a request that came in a comment, I recall. Because I used to never talk about positioning at all. I was like, because I was like, look, if you want educational stuff, there are other CCs out there who are going to cover that. But I remember somebody being like, could you at least talk about this a little bit? And I was like, okay. And it turns out that, people like to hear about that too. It's like, you don't just bow tank. These islands serve multiple purposes, not just for hiding behind, but you can use an island to actually turn and get a new angle. I try to include that more now than I did in the past. But I also try to not just do that because, again, it turns into, I think, an educational and boring video. Just try and do it enough so people can hear, I've looked at the lineup of the other team. I know how aggressive I can be with this. My team is doing this, so I need to prepare for that if I'm actually going to try and win. So I try to do that a little bit now, but not too much.
So you split it up quite well. You split it up very well, though, because you've got comedic soundbites as well.
Yeah, that's
Ruprecht video.
Yeah, I was just gonna. Well, Ruprecht. As soon as we knew that was coming to the game, I knew exactly what was gonna happen there. I was like, I had been waiting. I mean, there were plenty of dirty rotten scoundrels references in videos before. So as soon as I saw there was a ship called Ruprecht, I was like, well, this is obvious what's gonna happen.
I absolutely loved it. Every single one was perfectly put in just at the right time to announce it.
Yeah, I think there's probably a few subtle ones in there that people haven't noticed, but sometimes I will try to do that where it's just there's different mixing levels, and sometimes there's stuff you can hear on multiple listens. Not that I expect anybody to do that. Again, it's more like an inside joke for me.
To lean into more of the film side of things, there was a question which you failed to answer. You were very close to answering it, and you said it was a really good question, which I'm not surprised at. But Hipper VII or Hipper 7, whatever, he just to follow up on his, he said A, watch Hudson Hawk. That wasn't really a question; it was more of a direction, I guess. But B, have you done a Hudson Hawk themed video or no? Because I haven't seen it.
As I've told him, I've never even seen the movie. So I think it's Bruce Willis, isn't it? But I've never seen the movie. And at this point, it's me just trolling Hipper to be like, no, it's never going to happen. But I guess I need to watch it first if I'm going to do anything. And I know that I think that there's a ship on PC called is there one called
Hawk?
The Hawk?
Yeah, it's got terrible armor.
Oh,
really
see, that sounds like a perfect candidate. But
it does.
Yeah, but that's the other thing is we would need a ship that it's appropriate for, unless there's a plot line. Again, I guess I need to watch the movie.
I mean, yeah. Personally, I don't know too much about it. I've never seen it myself. Probably should have watched it before I actually said anything about it. But yeah, I felt Hipper needed to get that outed, and clearly he's still being trolled. Now another thing that you outed yourself as actually is a person who can fix things. Being a creative consultant, I'm sure you can, but you quoted "not for free." What problems could you solve within this game? Should you be paid for it?
Oh, well, all right. Well, let's take out the bug issue. But I think for gameplay, I think there are a few big things that need addressed. You can't just upset one person. You have to upset everybody. So I know I jokingly once said, well, why don't we just give will to rebuild to every class? Then everybody will be happy. And yeah, I was, trolling there. But obviously will to rebuild needs something done with. A lot of people, it's kind of a crutch. It encourages bad positioning. I understand that there is HE spam in the game, but ships are supposed to take damage, and, having invincibility for any class is a bad idea. So will to rebuild, which and plus the main thing with will to rebuild is it makes divisions more powerful, and that's the last thing a division needs. But will to rebuild has got to go. I think the buffs that the cruisers got at tier 7 to be able to compete with legendary tier, they need to be pulled out. I also don't think a lot of them need heals. I know that would upset a lot of people, but I think that that's something that would help punish certain ships. It's one thing to be able to use the broadside maneuver, and just take a full salvo of overpins, but it's worse when you can just heal that back, because every ship has heals. So yeah, I would like to see some of the rudder shift removed from all those buffs that the tier 7 cruisers got to be able to compete with legendary tier, because they don't compete with it anymore. And then I think that all of the destroyers' concealment needs nerfed by about 500 meters to start. Some of the things that we can get away with, and you can get your Kleber down to 4.8 kilometers with go all out. That is ridiculous. Or even sub 5 kilometers with a Shima. Imagine a sub 5 kilometer detection on Shima on PC, and how absolutely nuts everybody would be, because it is nuts to have that. Honestly, our carriers are not that bad, I don't think, though. I did just get to have my first legendary tier carrier game yesterday, and I will say it was not fun because I was in Kronstadt and it was a 6v6, but yeah, I don't understand necessarily the buff to the Soviet carriers this last update, but I don't think our carriers are that bad. But battleships, cruisers, and destroyers, that's how I would change all of those.
Okay, interesting to know. Now, we have another community question from Rockstabber, who is a long-term fan of the show, and he's a moderator as well, I believe, for the Discord. He was asking about your logo. Now, he's saying it's exceptionally clean. How did you create the brand? Do you specifically deal in design? Obviously, with your job, you might lean into that, I guess. Or do you have someone who helps you with it? Or where do you stand with that?
So when I was at university, I got a bachelor. I got my BFA in visual communications. I've always loved design, and that is my career, my real job, if you will. And I remember when I was I don't know that I remember exactly how I was coming up with it. I remember I wanted something super simple, because you just see so many logos that are way too complicated, and I was like, what I like about it, what I liked about it was it looks a lot like the pause button on old cassette decks and everything, or I guess everything with a pause now, it's just the 2 lines down. And so when I was making it, I was also thinking, how could I do the motion intro that I use on my videos with making all those letters out of the 3 bars? Well, technically it's 4. And so it was, it's, I could go into the design theory of it, but yeah, I mean, I went to school for that. I've been doing design for 20 plus years now, so there's a little experience there. I've known what you want and how to keep it clean.
Cool. That's certainly nice. That I'm sure Brockstar will be more than happy with your explanation there. Now, we're pretty much coming to the end, to be fair. It's not the longest thing, this, but we get a lot of information in. Now, I have one final question for you. And this is another favorite of mine, something that I ask to everyone, and not many people know the answer. Obviously, I imagine you have a lot of people that you like to play with, but do you have a favored opponent? Do you have someone who either grinds your gears, or you're in regular contact with and you like how they play, or find them hard to beat? Is there anyone out there that challenges MetaJerk in a way that only a good player could?
Definitely. There are, there's always players that you recognize. But I think 80 or 90%, I think I'm about 80% solo play, because I just prefer it that way. And I don't play with, I don't have like a division that I normally play with. I'll division up with the other CCs sometimes, or if I'm streaming, I'll do divisions with viewers. But players that I recognize, there are matches, which is always kind of crazy to think about, but there are specific matches I remember, and just especially when you run into somebody else solo, that it's kind of like, okay, I respect this. It's one thing to run into a division, fine, whatever. But if I run into a player solo, and we have a really good battle, and whether they beat me or I beat them, yes, I remember them. And I will give a big shout out, Bravo Foxtrot. He'll know exactly the match that I'm talking about.
Everyone needs to stop buffing Bravo.
I was in
too much attention.
I was in the Embra, and he was in the Fantask, and it was I want to say it was ranked, I think is what it was. And for whatever reason, our teammates ignored both of us, and he and I just went after each other for the longest time. So, Bravo, also JC Gameplay, JC. Oh, yeah. Our message history is essentially, I hate you, GG. And it's just back and forth. So yeah, but there's many good players out there. I mean, far too many to to list everybody, but those are just 2 specific players that I remember, because we have like an interaction afterwards where it's like GG, and it's just really hilarious. I don't know if I've ever seen this player again. I recall somebody dev striking my Vladivostok with an Alabama. I know their username. I've never seen them again, so I don't even know. I'm like, were they good, or did I just really get caught out of position there? So you remember those moments. But yeah, I can see everybody in the audience. I've seen all of these people in matches before. You recognize the name, you look out for them. That's kind of the rule that it's always been with me. If they're a division, you see who gets spotted, where they are, generally speaking. But yeah, there's a lot of good players out there. I think that training rooms are going to allow for some more interesting things, because you have a lot of people who tout their stats, and it's like, okay, well, you can beat up on the very teammates that you're complaining about. So let's see how it is when we do training rooms and can actually have some clan battles. I think that'll be really interesting to see.
That was something that I wanted to pick on, and I completely forgot about it. Because of your career in what is effectively solo, right? I wanted to know if you had thought about the clan aspect of it, if you were planning on doing anything with it, or if you were planning to sit back and watch it, commentate on it, or what were you planning to do with it?
Well, one, we got to see how we've got to see how training rooms are implemented. I'm begging. I sure hope that somehow they can put in a spectator cam, because being able to comment on it, I think would be a lot more fun for myself than necessarily playing in it. But I think that just would add so many options. I have talked about doing a clan in the past with Cranky, but we'll see. But personally, I think that if we can, spectate like you can on PC, I would much prefer to be behind the microphone than behind the controller.
I completely agree with you. See, looking from the outside in and also assessing everything, directing people's attention, potentially, if there is something similar to King of the Sea, which, PC have, competitions-wise, there's going to be a big market for that, and especially for your player base, your content. If you're streaming that, then you're going to be getting attention from every single place, and it can only buff your channel, which extends your reach, and then everyone's happy, aren't they? But you have always been more sedate, someone who doesn't seem to want the clout as much. I guess you just do it for your own enjoyment, and that's personally one of the main things I respect about you, and I enjoy that. There's not many people out there that don't want to push themselves into other people's phones.
Yeah, click like and subscribe. Here's my clickbait title. Yeah, that was very very early. That was a conscious decision that I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And exactly. I'd much rather just, there's a lot of histrionics in the community here, a lot of knee-jerk reactions to everything, and I try to not do that. I definitely want to be, or prefer to be, a voice of reason. I'm too old for that. Otherwise, I can't do that anymore. It's just so much easier to not overreact to everything, and at the end of the day, it's just a video game.
Good. That is a very very astute sentence to finish on, I think. But yeah, thank you very much for being here. Hope you've enjoyed yourself. Obviously, thank you to the entire community who tune in to listen to us, who enjoy our content as well, and obviously go sub to MetaJerk, because he actually has some really really good content, which is not the same as everyone else's. It's very specific in its USP. If you've listened to this, you'll definitely understand that. Now, we do have a few patrons that we need to shout out, which is MyschicK, Sevenrottendays, and Yokosuka Marine High School Fleet. I really need to change his name back, but that's what it is. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, everyone. We're going to quit the recording there, but if anyone wants to jump in, and MetaJerk's obviously got time, we can have a conversation live from this stage as we get the opportunity here with